We're broadcasting live from beautiful tropical Nomad, the premier co-working space in Bali. And if you actually look around, this place is still pretty busy, which is awesome because we're kind of by ourselves here in Bali. After they shut down the borders, like our community has been reduced to really maybe a few hundred people who are left here. Some people obviously think this is absolute paradise. I'm really one of them. Probably Bali hasn't been this quiet in the last 30 years, but also obviously it's a complete disaster for local businesses that really rely on tourism overall to make a living for millions of people. And so we started this new broadcast because we talk to a lot of entrepreneurs in the clean tech sector generally, but we want to expand that. And we want to talk about how your business is affected by COVID and the new normal. Yesterday evening, we had a conversation that I felt very strongly resonated with the entrepreneurs on the island. Because if we would have talked before the crisis, I would have been very adamant about the fact of not taking investor money unless you really need it. Right? I'm the biggest proponent of talking about bootstrapping the business and only raising money if you really need it. But now things really have kind of changed over the last few weeks because the businesses that are still growing today are the ones that have access to outside capital. Things have changed so much in that sense that you feel that the small business that relies on cash flow and revenue simply might be too weak to support themselves over these months of desperation of pretty much making no income. We are one of these. Our own engineering company, 2020, has made no revenue because there's no way for us to get our products into foreign markets and have them commissioned. The latest when we try to get an engineer over there, everything is over. Right? So it has gotten very tough and things really have changed. So we invite you as an entrepreneur to come on our program, go to exventure.co and schedule your slot and tell us about your business and how we can maybe help you to structure your fundraising for your business going forward to make you less dependent on revenue right now and giving you the tools to grow your business in the future. And also what's really cool tonight, I'm actually not hosting this by myself. I have a new co-host with me today, Oliver, who is on my staff here from Venture, who is going to be joining us and give us all the background information on the companies we're going to be seeing, because we're going to be doing a lot more switching back and forth and getting more and more people on this program and try to support you. Oliver, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Julian. Happy to be here, getting in front of the camera instead of being behind it the whole time. I think we actually have Tatiana online now, so we can jump over to Lavatech if we want to straight away.
Fantastic. Oliver has been behind the camera for the last 117 episodes that we shot over the last 3 months. So it's great to not always be up here by myself. And next week, we're going to even change that. I think we're going to have some musical guests and everything else. And we're really going to shake things up. But let's get to business. There's a very cool company we want to introduce to you. It's called Lavatech. And they're from, I always keep this, where am I a resident? I'm a resident of Latvia, so they're from Estonia, if I understand this correctly. So, Tatiana, welcome to the program. Can you hear me? I can't hear you yet, but I'm sure we can figure this thing out. A little bit backstory, I'm actually a resident of Latvia, which is the neighboring country there. I just know that it's very cold there at this time of the year. And so we're talking about lighting, indoor lighting, which I can imagine, especially in the Baltics, is a big thing because it gets dark at like 2 p.m. Can you hear me?
She doesn't have anything muted on her side.
Hold on 1 second, because I cannot hear you yet. So Oliver is going to figure this thing out. We've got about 5 microphones set up, also for our live guests.
Try her speaking now.
Okay, let's try this again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you?
And now I can hear you as well.
Okay, awesome.
It's a miracle. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for inviting.
So you're joining us from Estonia, correct?
Yeah, correct. I'm in Estonia at the moment.
How is it? I was in Latvia last winter. How is it right now in Estonia? Is it dark and cold already, or still late summer for you guys?
Well, it's quite a nice autumn for now.
Okay. And what I noticed last year when I was in the Baltics, get dark very, very early. Like in the winter, it was like 2:30 was getting dark. So for people like us who live in Bali, we love the sunshine. It's tough. It's a really tough environment. But tell us about your lighting tech and what you do at LavaTech, because it sounds super interesting from your website.
Well, we have developed a system, basically a software and control unit that helps to decrease energy consumption by up to 75% for the LED light systems. I can hear quite a big echo.
Yeah, it's too loud, Oliver. It's the echo. How do you do that? Can you give us a little bit of the background? Because 90% energy consumption reduction, that's a lot.
And now I can't hear you.
Yeah, but we can't. Okay. Should turn off. Okay.
Okay. Now?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
Audio is always the issue with these calls. Tell us how you do this. 90% decrease in lighting energy consumption. I mean, that's a lot. You need that light, right? How are you doing this?
Yeah. Well, it's basically based on how photosynthetic process works. So plants, they don't consume light constantly. And I'm not talking about sleep and awake period, like day and night options, but I'm talking about, I guess you can't hear me, can you?
I can hear you. It's all good.
You can, okay. I'm talking about light and dark phases of the photosynthetic process. So each plant has a different patterns of that, and they also change throughout the vegetation process. We basically provide light in accordance with that pattern. We know how to do a research in that pattern, and we also know how it's going to change. So within the system, we control 16 different parameters, of course, such obvious ones as power, spectrum, and so on. But then there are also 8 parameters that we're not really disclosing that help us to save that much energy.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it's more like a pattern, so you switch off more frequently when the plant wouldn't really use that energy for photosynthesis to begin with? Is that kind of the direction?
Well, the initial idea is yes, but it's a bit more complicated than that. And then also same time, we track other parameters within the facility like CO2 level, humidity, temperature, and so on, because they also affect lighting conditions.
I mean, 90%, I mean, even if it's just 70%, that's a lot, right? That's a massive change. Who are your key customers right now? I mean, it should be pretty easy to sell a system like this.
It is pretty easy. So our key customers at the moment are vertical farms. And from there, we will go also to normal greenhouse facilities. And then insect protein, for example, is also suitable for our system. We're starting with AgTech because it's the most valuable in that area at the moment.
Are there any kind of plants that this would not work for? I mean, can you do marijuana, for example?
We can. Anything that has photosynthetic process in it, we can work with it.
So where does your company stand right now? You're bringing this product to market. What are the next challenges you're working on right now?
Scaling up. And of course, we are doing further R&D. It's going to be extremely interesting. We are integrating camera systems into our technology, which will help us to read more data from the facility and also improve our system further.
And to scale up, are you looking for license partners or for investors? What would be your perfect addition to your team right now?
Investors and then more team members, because we want to grow team, and we are also establishing an in-house facility.
Okay.
In-house production facility.
How does your business model look like? So you're selling the software, or you're selling the service? How do you work with your customers?
So we provide light as a service. We provide access to our hardware, software, and database based on a monthly fee, and we charge per square meter.
Okay. And if you think, I mean, 90% reduction energy costs, if you look at the marijuana market, for example, in California, what would be the key customers where you would say, we're a small company, we can't serve everybody? What would be the first customers you're going for right now, and who would be the perfect customer for you to grow internationally as well?
It's going to be vertical farms. We are not working with marijuana growers at the moment because we got on board one very big corporate investor that I can't disclose name of. But we can't really enter that market at the moment, but we are for sure interested in it for the future.
So if you're talking to a large corporate investor right now, are you still open to talk to other venture capitalists out there, other investors, or you want to wait until this talks have come to a conclusion?
No, we are definitely interested in talking with other investors at the moment as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would be very happy to join these big names.
What kind of numbers? What is your ask right now? The ticket size? How much money you're raising, and what is the time frame you're looking for?
Well, we're hoping to close it by December, and we're looking at 2.5 million.
2.5 million, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Is the company pre-revenue, or you already have your first target customers that give you a little revenue at this time to show that your business model works?
We're charging for the hardware that we are providing, but we're obviously not profitable at the moment.
Yeah, that can come a lot later. No, but I think it's a very, very fascinating concept, and I would love to introduce you, especially, in cannabis. That's where I feel the most money is spent right now, especially in upgrading facilities, building new facilities, and putting a system in place that can be replicated anywhere in the world. Would that be a market where you say, if I have an investor out of the cannabis industry, would you be open to that, or you say, I would rather stay away from that?
Well, we would need to discuss it.
Yeah, we got some really cool people there. I got one friend of mine, for example, was a tech investor, a little bit kind of miserable, Silicon Valley. Now he's like super fit. Most of the time he's high and he's super happy, and he's making the best returns of his lifetime. So I'm always a little bit jealous when I see him.
I would want to have happy investors on board.
Happy investors are great. Fantastic. So I would love to see more of your technology. Who has validated your results so far? Are you working with universities or with customers? Can we get some data that really shows, back up the claims that you can save a lot of electricity?
Yes, sure. So we have running pilots in 5 countries. It's Belarus, Finland, Estonia, Poland, and Israel. And we've also been working with a couple of universities, including Israel Institute of Technology, Technion, and Tallinn University of Technology. So yes, there is definitely data that I would love to share with you if you want to see the numbers.
Fantastic. I think it's a great product. I think lighting, indoor growing is going to be a huge difference. And I would love to reach out to you after the call and get some more information from you. We are very happy to share this with our investor network. 2.5 million is not a lot of money for the kind of amount of energy saving you're talking about in big industrial operations. Probably has a payback period of that's very, very quick. So please send us your deck. And what's the best way to reach you if somebody sees this and want to reach out to you directly?
Well, my email or LinkedIn. You can share my LinkedIn profile.
Fantastic. Super exciting. So we're going to look at your deck and we're going to talk after the show. Probably tomorrow, I would like to make a few introductions for you. I can very well imagine that within our network, especially out of AgTech, we find somebody who's also not just an investor, but also can be a strategic partner and helps you grow in different markets where really a product like this is needed. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your information. Super exciting. And have a great day in the Baltics, right? Thank you. Great example, what we like to do on this program, and I feel very honored and very happy that we get all these incredible entrepreneurs on the program that are really solving today's problems. And if we look at indoor growing, obviously AgTech is becoming more and more important as we see that we have to completely restructure the way how we produce, distribute, and consume our food, because simply there are too many of us on this planet to be this inefficient with our resources. We work a lot in food waste, for example, so we see that about 50% of the food that we produce ultimately gets never consumed by the final customer. It gets spoiled along the way and it just never makes it to the table. Oliver, what's coming up next?
We have about a 10-minute break until Simon comes up, so we can have a chat about what's going on right now if you want.
Excellent.
Some insects are happening quite a lot yesterday.
Yeah, we got a big raise coming out of Asia. Where's the company based? I'd never heard of it before.
Yinsect, Asian-based. They're going to be producing 100,000 tons of insects by 2022. So pretty awesome. They're going to be making burgers and food from insects.
Yeah, it's bugs for burgers, we call this. And I think it's a great concept. It's something very close to us here, especially in Southeast Asia, because here's a long tradition of eating bugs as a protein source, and actually that can be pretty yummy as well. People describe them as crunchy and nutty and so many good things about them. I have to say that I've actually never experienced it myself, but as we're looking for different protein sources to eat, this is obviously a great opportunity right out there. And I think with our team here, we should look at growing some bugs here as well, because we have the great climate. We don't need to house them or anything. I think they're pretty easy to grow. How hard can it be? And this company, Oliver, how much did they raise yesterday? I know our friends from Demeter, one of the investors, that's how it popped up on our screen.
That's 425 million USD.
So $425 million to grow bugs.
Pretty large investment.
I think we could do that. It doesn't sound that complicated. We're going to ask around. I'm sure somebody around here in Bali knows how to grow bugs. But super excited, of course, about this because, if we look at meat production in the world, it's really one of the absolute strains on our ecosystem. Maybe no more need to burn down the Amazon. So we'll see where that takes us. What else is going on, Oliver?
Pardon, sorry?
Out there, beyond the bugs, what else is going on in the world while we are doing our show?
Siemens did quite a nice partnership with Macquarie yesterday to make Calibrant Energy. They're hoping to sort of change the game in distributed energy and progress that field that I think needs a bit more access. And as sort of we're more distributed with the whole Corona aspect, I think our energy and communications need to move towards that, which is what we're doing here today.
It's obviously an interesting combination. You take one of the largest hard and software companies in the world, especially in the energy sector, and Macquarie Capital we know quite well from their Singapore office, a company that finances big energy projects, especially for private customers. So it could be an interesting combination. It kind of reminds me of Alpha Structure, the joint venture between Carlyle Group and Schneider Electrics. It's kind of very similar. You get a financial partner, you get an infrastructure partner, and try to get into the program at the very, very beginning and develop the projects together instead of developing it and then looking for funding later. But it's definitely interesting to see how these big tech companies trying to get deeper into the value chain and make more money on the financing side, because that in clean tech often is the frustrating part. You build hardware, you might make a 10% margin, while a capital investor might ask for 10% every single year. So over 20 years, they simply make 20 times the margin than you do. So you have all the development risk, and they ultimately make the money. So it makes sense for companies like Siemens and Macquarie or Carlyle and Schneider Electrics to work together on this. We had some very interesting points that were raised last night. I don't know if you had a chance to see the program last night. We had 4 incredible tech companies on. One company making 3D printers for copper. We had a super innovative solar company on from Israel that is harnessing the energy on the backside of the panel, and therefore raises efficiency on solar systems 20-30%, which obviously would be awesome at the same production cost. So this would be really, really huge. Then we had a great presentation from a company called Ampere, an electric flight aviation company that's retrofitting small planes, commuter planes, and makes them fully electric, which we thought was really, really awesome. And then we had one company on that was a big surprise to us that is developing a new flow supercapacitor battery storage system for high energy consuming operations. And it was a big challenge for us to listen to all these pitches because they're very, very technical. But it was a great story to tell and to see how different these companies were pitching their products. All of them tech companies. So if you've got a little bit of time, check out yesterday's program and see the difference between 4 world-changing tech companies and how they present their product. It couldn't be more different, but I think it makes such a big difference to the viewer, especially in the days of Zoom, because it used to be that you can just sit down with somebody, you have a glass of wine, you have a beer together, you have dinner, We talked about them, Steven Birkenfeld. If somebody would come to New York to pitch at him at Barclays, he would take the time to take them out for dinner or for coffee at least, out of respect. All of this is gone. Now we got about 3 minutes time on Zoom, and if they don't like you within the first 10 seconds, you're kind of out, right? You're done, and you're probably not going to come back. So it's an incredible new normal because it's so much easier to meet with anyone in the world, but it's also so much easier for the person to zoom out on the other side of the call and start reading their emails, going online, or do whatever they need to do. You will never know. So this kind of respect factor that you have to listen to the whole thing kind of is gone over time. And this is changing the way how companies are pitching and how companies are communicating with investors around the globe. Lots of opportunity, but we think it's time to get prepared. So next Tuesday, again, we're going to have a great program with Steven Birkenfeld from Lehman Brothers and Barclays, who is going to teach companies on how to present better to investors. So Oliver, what's up for us next?
We're just waiting on Simon to come on from Seedling. And they work within the sort of innovative seaweed aspect, looking to sort of drive a clean and sustainable future from a seaweed arm, which is very interesting for me. Cultivation and community-driven local solutions. It makes food, it creates jobs, and it also cleans the ocean. So it's really exciting to sort of look forward to see what Simon has to say. We've got about 5 minutes before he jumps on. Okay. We're a little bit ahead of time, but exciting to see what's happening.
Yeah, and we love seaweed. Again, one discussion we had with Steven Birkenfeld last week was that, and I believe the same, is that the sustainable solutions for the future of this planet need to come from the ocean, right? Because we simply have so much from it, and we're not using it effectively right now. And every time you want to do something on land, it gets difficult because somebody usually is already there. There's a cow, there's a house, there's a tourist. So it gets very, very tough to kind of find enough space to make a big difference. So if we're talking about planting billions of trees to offset the effects of climate change, for example, it's just kind of tough because in most places, somebody might already be living there. And every square meter, at least in my experience, even now when you go to Africa, there's not just any more land, it's just everything is used for something. And I always hated the one truth of investment banking, which was always true for all of our lifetime, that was invest into land because they're not making more out of it. So I really would like to see if somebody has a great idea or something that would inspire me is how we can make more land. Right? And that doesn't necessarily needs to be like luxury floating, cruise ships where people live on. But I think if we could just harness the resources of the ocean more sustainable, but also more effectively and on a larger scale, I think would go a long way to make our life more sustainable and feed the growing population of this planet. And this is why we're so interested in seaweed cultures, maybe something you haven't heard that much about, but it's a big thing in Southeast Asia. And we got about 16,000 islands here. And the issue with seaweed right now is that it's grown usually on a very small scale. So you have maybe one family that's like harvesting maybe 1 acre of seaweed, and then it gets sold to Japan and gets eaten. So they're just not producing enough of it, but they're driving more revenue from it than if they would go fishing, for example. But how do we scale this? How do we really turn this into a product that maybe one day can compete with soy for feedstock, for example? There is such a massive market for feedstock fodder, for example. That is something where seaweed could come in, but right now there's just simply not enough of it, so the prices are very high, and most of it that simply gets eaten by the Japanese. There's not much left over. So this is why we're super excited to hear. I know our friend Ichi is Japanese. I know he eats about half of it, yes, with the sushi restaurants. There's just simply nothing left over for energy generation or feeding cattle right now. Right, so we'll see if Simon has come up with a solution to fix that. They're very active in Malaysia, not that far from us. It's about a 5-hour flight, 3.5-hour flight actually to Malaysia. So we'll see if it's going to come on. Obviously, there are multiple solutions we're looking at. He goes the route, if I understand it correctly, of empowering farmers to produce more. There are obviously also high-tech solutions out there that strive to build kind of like floating farm systems, which I think could be super exciting as well. Oliver, you got a little bit more news from us out of the world.
Well, I think just more of a personal aspect. I think the release on Netflix with David Attenborough's Life series over the last week has been quite prominent, especially in the space that we're looking at and creating some realization and some sort of hard data on what his lifespan has done to try and showcase and see what the impacts has had on this planet and this world. And now we're looking at the technologies to solve those issues today in our programs and everything. But that program sort of accesses the youth, accesses everyone, and puts a realization of what it is and what impact we've given. But we still have time to solve it. So I just want to hit home that everyone needs to see that for sure.
Well, what's the name of the program again? I haven't seen it
It's
yet myself.
David Attenborough's latest one. It's a Life on This World.
Okay.
David Attenborough on Netflix.
Cool.
Great
I mean, that's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, he's quite a big one in me, coming from the UK as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is the influence that Netflix can have. Some people are trying to save the world. I've gone vegan for a week now on a personal level. I'm not really sure if that's really, really ultimately working for me, but I feel better about the environment. But God, I miss my steak for right now. I wonder if that's really going to change over the next few weeks. But this is the influence. We have a little bit more time now in Bali because we can't leave. So occasionally we actually do have time now to watch Netflix and follow what the rest of the world is doing. Usually it's pretty busy here. If you have never been to Bali, we have a real entrepreneurial community here with meetings every single night. You have a lot of people that come in here from San Francisco, from the Bay Area, also from major Asian cities, simply because Shanghai and Tokyo, all this place have gotten so expensive that if you have a family particularly and you feel like me, you're too old to live in a shoebox, people come out here, have an incredible life at a fraction of the cost. So, Simon.
We don't have him on yet, just yet.
Don't have him on yet, so...
We've still technically got 1 minute to join.
Okay.
And we pushed him, so we'll see if he comes on.
We'll see if he comes on. So maybe a good time to introduce the rest of the team. We have Felix with us. He was like the master streamer and is always responsible for having this incredible picture quality that we deliver now for the last 117 episodes. We got Itchy and his team here with us. Itchy, come over. Just let's talk about Tropical Nomad for a little bit and make sure nobody has time to get prepared and fix their hair. But this is the man here on our side. His name is Itchy.
Thank you.
And he is converting this space from it's a garment factory, right? You would call that initially, and now it's going to be like it already is like the most modern co-working space on the island. How did you start? How did you come up with this idea to build your co-working space?
It all started from where we wanted to actually have a more multi-directional input into making some great concept. So having concept making yourself is not very creative. You know, if you are able to collaborate with many people and then to make something that's what people really need, that can actually change the whole thing. So all of a sudden it just became a very amazing idea. It's all thanks to people that start working out of here, actually.
Yeah, and you have a great hand of getting creative people in here as well, right? People don't just come here to work, but they set up their events, they share their knowledge. It's a very integrated feeling. You do a lot with barbecues, free drinks to kind of foster that. What's your philosophy behind that?
It's all about collaboration. Collaboration creates community, and then that makes us even more bigger network and then have more influence to the members in a positive way. We want to value add, we want to support, we want to facilitate. That's our philosophy.
And what I thought cool about this, especially for where we are right now after COVID, I mean, Bali is almost deserted. A lot of people have left the island. A lot of businesses have closed. So it's like a ghost town out here. But I think you guys never missed a day, right? At least so that I remember.
Yeah, I think we just kept on going. You know, we had to never close. We just kept on going. We tried to implement the Corona, practices, make sure it's safe workplace. But no, we never gave up. We just kept going. Yeah.
And it's pretty busy. I mean, people still come by here and, up to like 4 or 5 events per week. You always hear somebody singing, somebody taping, and obviously live streaming has become the next big thing. So how do you feel about the live streaming? You're really pushing this here.
I really appreciate, Julian, that you actually bring the level even higher, for us so that we get able to do this collaboration. We're really, really honored to work with Felix, Oliver as well. This is an amazing thing for us, and this is really that we feel that this is a showcase to the world what we can do today from a co-working space and a community in a small city, small town actually, in Canggu, Bali. I think it's a great testimony. Hopefully we can encourage people even more, send the great news, basically, the good news out to the world. Yeah.
No, it's things are changing so drastically. So this is all about the new normal, but the new normal also means, as you say, you can be on the beach in Canggu. Everything now is kind of emptied out because it's sunset time, so everybody's off to the beach to enjoy that. You don't have to be in Tokyo anymore, right? To run a business, you can do it from here. What brought you to Bali to begin with? You're from Japan initially, right?
I wanted to have a totally different kind of lifestyle. I was used to be in IT industry. I was burned down. I was sick, and then so I had to change my lifestyle. So I chose Bali. I wanted to do small business. I started off with a coffee business. Well, didn't work out very well. From there, went into restaurant business. Now, co-working, and this is where I feel really, really happy to be right now. It's so amazing working with so many creative people here right now.
You definitely have to check it out. Ichi, thank you so much. And it's our honor to be here in this place and to, also, make new friends here and get the message out of what can be done remotely these days. So many things are changing. It's a totally new normal. If we look at our program, we're actually able to sometimes talk to 14, 15 different companies all over the globe without ever leaving our backyard for the first 3 months. Now we're doing it from Tropical Nomad. So this is a great opportunity, but it's working really, really well. And it's so much more sustainable than what we used to do. It used to be the case that if we got an opportunity to talk to an investor in Silicon Valley, and he said, listen, I'm having like a little gathering on Friday, would you like to come? I always would say yes. It didn't matter if it was in Germany, if it was in the Philippines, and then he would like run to the airport, you have your own carbon emissions from flying around the world, you get super tired, it costs a lot of money, but that was the old normal. Now, with a little bit of preparation, we can do everything from right here, and we can be so much more effective and have such a better quality of life than at least I ever had as a CEO over the last 20 years, trying to raise money and flying around the globe. So, but I'm really getting excited about, here's something about the seaweed, so you should be here.
Unfortunately, we don't have them on yet. We deal with quite a few countries, and even the ones close to home, such as Malaysia, sometimes have a connection issue. We don't have Seedling on, but it's also quite nice to know that there's an app on your phone now called Capture, where you can track real-time data on what your CO2 footprint is and what your sort of impact is on this world. And as we live in a data-rich society, let's add that to what we do as an impact. And a phenomenal company called Capture, CEO Josie Stoker, allows that and offers that and creates options and sustainable applications so you can reduce that. Not only is they're giving you real-time data on what you're impacting, but options of how to reduce that as well. So it's super cool. Lots of innovations coming.
I should definitely start tracking it now. I just got my Google results. Always used to be fascinated. At the end of the month, I used to get this little email, I don't know if you're getting it as well, about all the places I've been to in the last month. And it used to come up, say, you've been to 15 different countries, you've been to 60 different cities, and now, during COVID, it kind of gives me this radius of like 5 miles in each direction. We have really gotten super territorial. We almost never leave our little bubble. Occasionally maybe to have dinner, but that's kind of it. So definitely my carbon emissions have dropped drastically. I'm vegan now, I don't go anywhere. We drive a tiny little scooter with 3 people, we put the baby on there. So definitely my per day per capita CO2 emission has drastically dropped without really suffering a loss in quality of life. Not to have to travel so much anymore is really one of the greatest gifts that becoming a digital entrepreneur around the world has brought to our life. You're not always tired anymore. Get up in the morning, I can train, I can stay fitter, I can stay healthier, and I can live a much better life at a fraction of the cost of being in Silicon Valley or Los Angeles or London, for example, as I've done the last 20 years before we started doing this program. So I'm going to give this to Oliver for 1 second. I'm going to get a quick drink, and I'm going to be back in 1 minute.
To me? Okay. So yeah, just waiting for Simon to come on. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll have him. Can you just reach out to him? Cheers.
Everyone have a drink.
Yeah.
Joining at 7.
No, 6:40.
Oh, I told him 7.
It's always about live streaming. Gotta love it. I mean, could get rid of the shipping company. So you have 12 minutes to fill in. Would you like to postpone the shipping company as well?
One of the exciting things we have tonight is that everything is a little bit electrostatically charged here. So every time I take this mic, it get this beautiful crittly feeling in my hands. But since we're not building power plants anymore, I'm not worried about it because this is a very, very low voltage. So we have now figured out that actually Simon will be joining us just in a few minutes to be talking about the Seaweed company, which I think I'm super excited about. And I haven't heard from him in the last, I would say, at least 8 to 9 months when they're looking to raise capital at an investor pitch event directly here in Canggu with an Asian investment club that a friend of ours is managing. So this is something we have also in Bali. We have a lot of investors here, a lot of people that retired maybe from Singapore, from Shanghai for a better life, but they still run their office from here. The same way we do it, our business is in Singapore, but we obviously spend a lot of time in Bali because it's cheaper and it's simply a lot of fun. So when we think about the presentation yesterday, what really made me think again at the very end of it is how much it matters to prepare for your investment pitch. I had a friend of mine, Kevin, came on yesterday from a company called Ampere. And I met Ampere 4.5 years ago when they literally were just coming out of the garage. And I'm kind of have this track record of making really kind of dickish opening statements so people start disliking me at the beginning and then it might get better over time. And I love that company because I come out of power generation and we have invested a lot of money in R&D over the last decade. A lot of it is gone. But I love them because my feeling was I have maybe invested 150 million. They're probably going to lose $1 billion before they get something off the ground. But they didn't. They actually have something flying now that's fully electric. And they've only raised about $7.5 million at this point. But what I thought was amazing was that this young company and this young CEO has gained so much experience over the last 4 years that he has become such a seasoned, CEO that the story is funny. He could play with it. He had a great sense of humor. He was super confident. He was giving, a great example in storytelling. And to see Remedi Tonak, one of the leading investment bankers in the clean industry, just kind of almost being speechless and say, listen, I can learn from you. There's not much I can say to make your pitch better, was really incredible to see. But a big part of that was also, I think, the training that Kevin has gotten as being part of the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, where you're in an environment where people come by on a daily basis. So they call you out of your office and say, listen, this investor, this guy is coming, can you come out and pitch your company? And you do it again, and you do it again, and you get feedback, and you get trained at it. And if you do this long enough, by the time you're ready to raise big funds, you're also ready as a presenter, as a character, as a visionary, to communicate your need for that capital in a way that investors will resonate with it, right? And this was 4 years of training, but at the end of it, everything sounded so easy, and it was so much fun. And there was such a great feeling about it. Training really, 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 really pays off if you're in an industry where you're preparing to raise big amounts of capital. So if you're in deep tech, if you're in clean tech, start early. You might not have to go out pitch right now. You don't even maybe need that money right now, but start practicing and getting that story a little bit better, a little bit more precise every single day. Because only if it's easily understood and fun, anybody at the end of the day can follow you. And this is not just investors invest into your company. This is staff. This is your family. This is your friends. This is your angel investors. These are your customers. If they don't understand and get inspired by what you're trying to do, ultimately nobody will support and follow you. Most businesses are so complicated, you just cannot do it by yourself. So you need people to support you. And if they don't understand you and they don't you don't grab them in a certain way that they get excited about you, it's going to get very, very lonely out there, and you're probably not going to be able to scale your business. So practice what you're pitching, even if you don't have to raise the money right now, but take the time to mature with your story. Throw in a little joke in there, have fun with it. And you never know what kind of situation you're thrown in. Maybe yesterday, before you went on pitching, we were just talking about the difference between California and European companies, because US companies often oversell their product, but European companies are being super honest. So you kind of have to know that beforehand. And then you come on from California and say, listen, I'm totally oversell you on everything, but you're going to have fun with it, and still the substance of what we do is really going to stand out. I think we still have a great investment proposal for you. And this was incredible to see, especially back-to-back with other companies that don't have that maturity of pitching yet. All great technology companies, but the presentation, the vision, the person that is representing your brand makes ultimately such a difference. I just cannot state that enough. Start practicing now. If I don't understand within the first 30 seconds, 35 seconds, what you're doing, most people in the Zoom age already kind of switched off mentally. They zoomed out. Zoom is not just about zooming the communication, it's zooming out of the communication, because ultimately nobody knows what you're doing when you step away from your laptop, or, I can even people see just kind of like, they got their laptop around, they got their phones around, they're distracted, they're doing a million other things. Sometimes you don't even really want to know what they're doing, but they're probably not going to listen to you on an intentional level anymore that gives you a chance to raise money from them. So practice, practice, practice. And obviously at EX Venture, we're also here to support you at that. This is why we have a new broadcast program that is focused on entrepreneurs to improve their pitches and their chance of raising capital and build support in the investor community through clear communication. So reach out to us at exventure.co. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. And this is also a test to see what happens if we keep streaming on LinkedIn, because yesterday we picked up a lot of people along the way that I don't even remember inviting. So this is a test. How many of you people are sitting out there right now and might have much better things to do than listen to me talk and wait for Simon, but still you're watching? And we're going to look at the end and see what kind of stats we got back from that. So, Simon.
Not yet.
Not yet. Still
got 5 minutes. We
Still.
pushed him back 20 minutes. We can move on to a nice topic as the UK person in the room that always gets thrashed upon about Brexit. But our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, just sort of announced the green industrial revolution in the UK that's taking a predominant focus on wind. And just looking at the EX Venture Night and the different aspects of turbine, wind power, offshore, onshore, Enerkite were quite a standing point and talk topic, sort of bringing flags and kites into the aspect. And then all of the offshore wind complementary technologies like wave technology that we can implement as well. It's exciting, but I think we might actually have Simon on.
There's someone joining.
Which is exciting.
But no, but this was an exciting announcement. To be quite honest, if Boris Johnson announces something, I tend to not take it too serious, but it definitely has a certain entertainment factor. But that might be my personal thing with the UK. Of course, I wish that the UK is even going to do more, even though the UK has been one of the biggest investors in the clean technology inside the European Union and at some point outside of the European Union. So a lot has been done. And what I thought was exciting about it is that also the aspect of floating offshore wind farms was really specifically mentioned, something that obviously could be very, very interesting to see, but also technically a bit risky. There are obviously a lot of opportunities in the UK, especially when it comes to wind farms, when it comes to Scotland, which I think is still part of the UK at this point. A lot more could be done, right? As long as I don't have to go back and build any more power systems in the UK, that ultimately didn't work out so well. But let's bring on Simon now. I think he's with us. And see where he is. And let's find something out about seaweed farming, which maybe many of you have never really thought about in your life, why we should do this, who's doing it. And you might just know seaweed farming from sushi rolls. Simon, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can, Julian. Hi, how you doing?
Excellent. Good to see you again. Are you in Malaysia or where are you hanging out these days?
Yeah, no, I'm still in Malaysia, still in Sabah. This is where the team works, where our labs are and where our farms are. So I've been here for this whole crazy time.
Fantastic. Tell us a little something about Sabah for the people who don't know Malaysia well. Where is it and how did you end up there? I've never heard of this place and I lived 4 months in Malaysia.
Yeah. So Sabah's in Borneo. So the island of Borneo is partially owned by Indonesia, partially Malaysia and Brunei. So Sabah is one of the states of Malaysia. Borneo is a beautiful place. It's absolutely stunning. We've got, mountains and forests and oceans and coral reefs. It's really, really special. And I came here for seaweed. The seaweed industry in Southeast Asia is huge. It's a major industry in countries like Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia. And I was looking for a place to start a biotech company for seaweed. And it turned out that Sabah in Malaysia and Borneo is the best place to do it, just because there's farming here, but at the same time, there's really, really good biotechnology facilities at some of the universities here that I could lease out. My business background was in Indonesia. I lived there for more than 6 years. I speak fluent Indonesian. But I chose not to start it there because the quality of lab space and graduates in Indonesia wasn't the best. So I came to Malaysia just because, I've got the perfect thing. I've got labs in which we can sequence the genome. And at the same time, I can drive an hour away and go to a seaweed farm. So for us to iterate, it's just fantastic.
Excellent. And also it's a great example of why we need your solution because Borneo, or Indonesians call it Kalimantan, right, the other side, we're talking about massive deforestation that a lot of people don't hear about because always overshadowed by the deforestation in the Amazon. But what is the situation on the ground? Is it as bad as we read about it when it comes to new farmlands being kind of ripped out from the forest? How's the situation on the ground?
Yeah, Malaysian part of Borneo is better than Indonesian. Like Kalimantan, there is huge problems with unlicensed and illegal logging. Sabah is better, but I wouldn't say it's wonderful. There's huge problems with deforestation and, destruction of animals' habitat. The tragic thing for me, I'm an ocean person. The ocean is my love, it's my passion. And is that when you've got so much over-fertilization of the land, through fertilizing palm, the over-fertilization trickles down through the rivers out into the oceans. And those excess nutrients causes things like algal blooms, and it causes destruction of reef systems and ocean acidification, which is tragic, because, the reefs here are like some of the best in the world. The great thing about seaweed is all of those nutrients that gets washed out into the ocean is free food for seaweed. So it makes our seaweed grow even faster. So, we're growing faster growth rates of seaweed, but at the same time, we're cleaning the water, we're deacidifying the ocean.
So this is one of the points I think we should be growing a lot more seaweed out there because seaweed is like a natural water filtration system, right? It eats up the nutrients that are already in the water. What are the other reasons we should be investing more into seaweed productions and why are you doing it?
Yeah. So seaweed has got clear ecosystem benefits. It deacidifies water, it strips out excess nutrients, it creates marine habitats for fish. At the same time, it's got tremendous social benefits. It gives sustainable job opportunities for coastal communities, which otherwise would be out fishing. And when their fisheries are in danger, they might start doing, bomb fishing and so forth. So this gives them a regenerative livelihood that gives them income, to support their families. But at the same time, it's sustainable. It's really, really important. For the future, seaweed is going to have a tremendous opportunity for carbon capture. We're starting a project right now to, measuring sequestration rates of carbon. This is an international project. We're representing Southeast Asia. And it's going to be used for animal feed supplements, which reduce methane as well. So, where we are now with seaweed is it's got clear social and environmental benefits. The next step is going to be carbon.
I mean, I'm a deep believer that the solutions for a more sustainable planet and to feed this planet will need to come from the ocean, right? This is really what deeply interests me in seaweed as one of the solutions out there. If I understand it correctly, traditionally, seaweed farming is really like small farming business, small quantities, very, very labor intensive. What are you bringing to the industry that is going to make it possible to scale that production and drive more revenue and more impact to the people seaweed farming, but also for the rest of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So seaweed farming, it's a major industry worldwide. It's worth more than $6 billion a year. But it is still in the Stone Age, essentially. At the moment in our region in Southeast Asia, it means a farmer paddles out in his canoe, takes whatever he's got at hand and plants it in the hope that it will grow well and flourish, in the coming season. There's no science to it at all. It's extremely basic. This is what agriculture was like 100 years ago. So we came in there to look at the seed material, looking at ways of making seedlings which are faster growing and more resilient to things like diseases and temperature changes. That's our first step. The second step is we're making really novel animal feed products out of the seaweed. The true value of the seaweed is the nutrition and what's called bioactive compounds which are anti-cancer, antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral. So these really nutritious, healthy compounds which we can then feed to humans or animals, and they give tremendous health benefits. So what we've done at Seedling is we've produced seedlings of seaweed that grow significantly faster than what the farmers currently use. We supply them to farmers. The farmers grow them out, as they usually do. They get bumper harvests. We buy back everything they produce, and we make high-quality products with it. Our products are unique both in terms of their quality, but the full sustainable origin of the products. So, the customers that we service, they're looking for quality, but they're also looking for the story of sustainability that they can pass on to their customers.
When you go into animal feed and everything else, are you price competitive at this point? I mean, compared to growing, soybeans in Brazil or Argentina, for example?
Yeah, so we're not doing it for a protein such as a soybean. At the moment, with the cost of seaweed, we're priced in really well as a feed supplement. So it's something you put in low inclusion rates in the feed, and it gives significant health benefits. You might put, say, 2% in the feed, and you get higher growth and resistance to diseases. That's where we are now. And it's a great business model, and we can be we can be really competitive. Where the future is as we can further improve the productivity of seaweed farming, then we can drive down the cost, and then we can start looking at species of seaweed to come in as major kind of larger percentages of feed, whether it's proteins or carbohydrates.
Something that's very personal for me. I think we should produce massive amounts of seaweed, right? It really needs to be the answer the answer to deforestation. I think needs to come from the ocean. There are some studies out there that obviously, like seaweed underwater farms could have a much bigger impact than reforestation measures, which we should still do. But it needs to be on a massive scale. If I understand correctly, the issue with seaweed and open water farming, though, is that you don't generally have the nutrition necessary in the top layers of the water that you would need to grow seaweed, let's say, really out on the ocean. Because if I understand correctly, you're very close to the seashore right now. Do you find opportunities in really open water seaweed farming, or is that something that's a thing of the future?
Yeah, look, in the evolution of the seaweed industry, there's going to be a number of steps as this grows. The ocean is 72% of this Earth's surface. We've got tremendous capacity to generate food, biomass, by farming the ocean. Where we see now the opportunity is capturing coastal waters, waters up to a depth of, say, 30 meters. And that's a huge amount of water around the world, and that's got the capacity to produce vast quantities of food and other algal products. In the long term, and there's people who have already modeled this, we can have giant, big, 100 square kilometer floating algal farms out deep at sea. And these are all automated, and this is how we'll be able to generate, really, really vast quantities of biomass. In the deep waters, on the surface layer, it is nutrient poor. There's real lack of the core nutrients that seaweed need to grow. And there's already a couple of groups working on pumping up water from deep underwater. Like you go below 200 meters deep and the water's actually nutrient rich. So they're pumping up water from deep up to the surface and irrigating the seaweed with nutrients on the surface. And there's already a couple of groups working on this now. That's in the future, I foresee within 10 years, we're going to have this jump to be having, massive, big open scale, automated seaweed farms deep at sea. Where we are now at Seedling is about capturing the nearshore, which is a huge opportunity. We've literally got millions of people looking for an alternative livelihood close to, the ocean now that fisheries is collapsing. And so we can come in there with our superior growing material, and then that sets us up for the future when we go to massive offshore seaweed farming. We've already got our proprietary seed material. So that's the evolution of the industry, and that's how we're strategically positioned.
So what are you looking for right now? Last time I saw you were presenting your company here in Bali. What is your current corporate structure, and how does your growth strategy look from here going forward? Are you looking for investors? Are you looking for partners, supporters? What's next for you?
Yeah. It's super exciting. Look, we were all ready to take on a capital raise at the beginning of the year, and then COVID hit, and so we said, okay, look, we're taking a break. We're just going to get back to it and focus on what we're doing, do the next couple of steps, and we'll do a capital raise later. Where we are now is we're just launching our first feed product, which is a pet feed additive. It's a fermented seaweed pet feed additive. And it's super exciting. We actually just got our first order 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And we got really good market traction. So we're setting up our little pilot hatchery and seaweed processing center to make pet feed. We'll be doing a seed round at the beginning of next year to do a much larger pet feed factory. And then at the same time, we've already got our recipe for an aquaculture feed. This will be a seaweed additive for the aquaculture industry, for fish and for shrimp. We've already got interest from major aquafeed players such as Biomar, Cargill, and CP. They've already said, okay, you've got a sustainably sourced seaweed additive for the fish farming industry. We're really interested. Can we work together? So we've got market demand. We just need to do the animal trial to do the trials with fish and shrimp. So we'll do a seed round at the beginning of next year, roll out our large pet feed factory, our larger hatchery, do the trials of the aqua feed, and then a year after that, we'll do another Series A to set up a significant aquaculture feed processing plant and hatchery, most likely in Indonesia. So that's our rough timeline.
Excellent. But to sum it up right now, you're focusing on developing the right seaweed that grows faster and more reliable than what is currently in the market, and then you're working with the local farmers to have more of that grown in near coastal waters. Is that kind of?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a couple of farming communities here in Sabah, and so we supply them with seaweed seedlings with a guaranteed buyback at the end, and we turn it into products. So, that's what we've been doing for a year and a half now. And now it's just about scaling that. And with our seedling production and with the varieties we use, the more areas we work with, the more we'll increase our seed stock, our varieties that we work with, and also our IP of genetic environment interactions.
So is there an opportunity already? Like, let's say if I'm an investor in Indonesia, I want to do something to coastal waters, tourism is down, I'm looking for something new. Can I get the seedlings from you already and start my own farm here? Or how does your business model work on this?
Yeah, so our business model is not just supplying seedlings. We're looking to both supply the seedlings and then make high value products in the back end. So, it's both the upstream and downstream. In terms of coming to Indonesia, it's a natural stepping stone for us to achieve, the true scale. It's going to be in Indonesia, starting here in Sabah, but then scaling to Indonesia. So when we do come to Indonesia, we're looking for partners, whether for JVs or licensing. And I'd love to start speaking to people about that now.
No, I think it's definitely the right time to do this. And Oliver, where do we stand? Do we have a little bit of time, or do we have to move on?
I think we might need to wrap up there. We have Kristin from Anchorage.
Okay, fantastic, Simon. But thank you so much for this information and this update. Keep up the good work. I hope you're not too lonely in Borneo. And
no, we're doing good. Thank you.
You just need the ocean and to be happy, right? We need a little bit more. So it's great to see you. We wish you all the luck in the world. Keep us updated. If you need any strategic partners, investors, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to share the story with whoever might be able to, advance your course and get you to grow faster and be more successful. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Julian.
We'll talk soon. Bye-bye. As I said, I think it's a really, truly fascinating subject, is farming the oceans. When Simon says we're going to be there in 10 years, that's going to take me a little bit too long. I mean, I'm 44 years. I'm going to be 54 in 10 years. I really don't want to wait that long. I mean, I want to get those floating farms out there as quickly as possible. And I do think that there's an investor appetite for doing this, even if it might be a little bit bumpy at the beginning, because just the trajectory and the time for it is so right, and I think there's going to be some money to be made with it. At the same time, we should be scaling this very, very quickly, because especially when we look at carbon sequestration, that means taking carbon from the atmosphere and storing it in some kind of product, or relieving the pressure of producing other products for animal feed, for example, or even as the food itself. I think we should be a lot faster on that. And it has been incredible to see that ocean farming really, unless it comes to fish, has been so behind. As I said, we're really kind of in the stone ages. And if you go out to these villages in Indonesia and Malaysia, you see the same traditions of seaweed farming that you have seen for the last few generations. Super labor intensive. And there's no way we can feed the global population with one Indonesian family going in there and cutting the seaweed by hand. Again, it's going to be all eaten up by the Japanese if we stay at this rate. All right, and we're moving on to talk to Kristin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you.
Where are you based?
I'm based in Reykjavik, Iceland.
Oh, back to Iceland. Yeah. We just had somebody on from Estonia earlier today, and yesterday from Finland. Great battery technology. Greetings to Iceland. Haven't been there in a long time. So what does your company do? Give us a quick introduction.
Well, actually we are creating cloud-based software platform for ship owners and charterers of container ships, so they can share data and collaborate for improved performance. So
when you mean performance,
in an industry like
the performance of shipping things from A to B, or what performance are you optimizing through the platform?
We are focusing quite a lot on the fuel performance here as well. The problem in the industry there, you have the global shipping industry. It's one of the biggest industries in the world, carrying 90% of everything around the world. But the problem is in the business model, you have like companies that are owning the vessels, and then the companies that are operating them. Mm-hmm. And the companies that are operating the ships, they pay for the fuel. But charter rates or the rental fees for the vessels, they have not followed really the fuel efficiency. So we are using IT and information technology just to highlight the differences between vessels and make sure that there's incentive to invest in fuel performance.
Which I do think is great. But what's your estimation? How many container vessels out there are driving around empty at the end of the day? I mean, my feeling is that, we bring a lot of stuff from China over. I understand that, but there's not that much stuff we're shipping back. So, you got massive fuel consumption on this container ships. What is your estimation? How much percentage of all the containers in the world that are being shipped right now are empty?
I'm not sure about that statistic entirely, but of course I think that we need to find more stuff to ship back to China to average this out. But if you look at the shipping industry in total, of course there's quite a lot of optimization ongoing on trying to fill all the vessels and all the containers, and to find that how to make it even more environmental friendly. It is the most environmental friendly means to transport goods today, and you can look at it as kind of like the artery system of the global trade, because all the stuff is being made in China, and then it's being shipped to Europe and US and out to the markets where we buy the stuff, and then you need to get all the materials into China as well.
What I always find interesting about the shipping industry, I mean, obviously, I mean, we live in an island, right? So everything that we consume gets imported. You live on an island as well. Local resources in Iceland are limited from the few times that I've been to Iceland. It feels to me, though, that the shipping industry overall, even though it's like $1 trillion industry, when it comes to innovation, you don't hear much. Or is that just my feeling?
No, well, of course it's a big industry, but it's also quite asset heavy. If you look at, how big role the shipping industry is in the world, and how big it is, you only have like maybe 50,000 cargo ships carrying all this cargo around the world. So in number of ships, it's not that much. And when you build a vessel, it's built to last 20, 30 years at least. And so there is maybe quite good reason why it's moving in slower steps maybe than more like digital oriented industries. But still there is some innovation there. And we're seeing right now some startups, more startup activity. Some of the larger organizations, they're also more going into investment on the digital front and innovation. Of course, well, we're not still sailing wind. By the wind, maybe we're going back there, but yeah.
I loved. I'm from a city called Bremen in northern Germany. We used to have a big company called Beluga. They were building the sails for the container ships. I still think it's a great idea. Actually, the technicals team is still out there working on the sails, which I think would just makes so much sense to go back to. Even if it's just 20% of the primary energy used for shipping goods back and forth all over the planet, this would make a massive impact right there. Going back to your product, what is your business model? Are you selling the software or a membership? How do you plan to grow?
We have a software as a service model for our business model, where we have both ship owners and charterers as customers. We have started in the container segment, where there are globally somewhere around 6,000 container vessels sailing the seas, and today more than 600 vessels, data for more than 600 vessels has been shared on our platform. So even though we started short time ago, only 2 years since we launched the product, already 10% of the global container fleet has been shared through the platform.
It's actually incredible to think that almost 10 billion people are supplied by 55,000 vessels. I mean, that seems to be a very, very small, surprisingly small number of vessels out there. So you've already gotten like 10% of the market share. That's really awesome. What's your structure right now? Is it self-funded, or do you have a big corporate partner? How did you get to this point?
We have got support from local investors here in Iceland, government-backed VC, and also we are also in revenue, so we are also receiving development grants here from the government. So very well supported from the Icelandic innovation environment here. It's good to have a startup in Reykjavik, Iceland. But for taking us forward, we of course, if we want to grow fast, of course, we need then to invest more in building the company up.
And you're open to investors to come on board at this point and invest into your company, grow faster, or you're looking for strategic partners? How can somebody from the outside make a difference right now and make you grow faster?
Yeah. Yes, we are considering our next investment round in a seed round, where we would then scale up both on the technical team and start to build more of a commercial structure.
How much you're looking for? What raise are you looking for?
We would be looking around 1 million euros for the next step.
Yeah, very interesting. We really have to think who's in the shipping industry, because almost there's something called Trans-Tech or something that is called, and transportation in general, but it just has not been so much on our radar yet. Is it more interesting for you to get a financial investor on board, or are you looking for a strategic partner that maybe brings their own fleet of vessels with them, or might be owning those vessels? What would be a perfect match right now?
Well, it depends. I guess some strategical investors are always good, especially if they can, and also with maybe insight into this kind of business model, of a platform business model. I think that's also quite interesting to look at. And of course, having some background in shipping could help. So we're in the kind of a beginning phase of looking at the next funding. So we are still open to discussion and open to look into several different.
Excellent. I mean, if there's any kind of way we can help of structuring an offering like this, I say it's not a core industry, but I think could be very, very interesting. If somebody sees this, hears this on a podcast, what is the best way to reach out to you? LinkedIn, or what's the best way to communicate?
LinkedIn, quite easy to reach me. Also, just on our website, ankeri.net, you can find all contact details as well. But LinkedIn, very easy to find me there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kristen, for this information. This is actually pretty cool, how to be more effective, more efficient of shipping containers around the globe. It's definitely something that affects every single one of us every single day with the products that we get. And there are definitely so many opportunities for making this more effective, more efficient, cheaper and cleaner. And really thank you so much for bringing some industry innovation into shipping that I think is desperately needed. Thank you, Kristen, for taking the time, and we're going to stay in contact. Very interesting stuff. And the website is called anken.net. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
This was so interesting, and I said I love this job when we do this here. We've had 3 super interesting companies doing very, very different things, from revolutionizing the way how we use light for indoor growing, to seaweed farming in Malaysia, and then how to make container ships and transportation more efficient through digital platforms, tracking, and simply making sure that we ship less containers empty around the world, which could make a massive difference right there, even though it's so obvious, but currently really nobody's doing it. Thank you so much, Oliver.
That's it.
I think this is it for tonight. I said a lot of great interviews this week. If you missed it yesterday, check out the program with Remigio Tonac, 4 incredible tech companies. We're going to be back next Tuesday, and we're going to have our incredible guest, Steven Birkenfeld, joining us, former head of private equity at Barclays and Lehman Brothers. He's going to give advice to startup companies in the clean energy industry from all over the world. We don't know yet who's going to be on the program. If you want to pitch, if you got a great growth story, please reach out to us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Also, drop us a message. Let us know what you think, and let us know if you want to come on this program, as we're opening up a little bit, not just clean tech, but we want to hear about your innovation, how you're affected by COVID, and what is your new normal. Thank you, everybody. You're on staff from beautiful Canggu, Bali, Tropical Nomad. Thank you, Felix, Oliver. I got my little daughter in the back who's supporting us. She can't wait. Itchy from Tropical Nomad. And we're going to be back on Tuesday. Thank you, everybody, so much. Have a great night.